Hello, good morning everyone. This is Scott Elliott and welcome to the weekly trade report video for the week of October 30th, 2016. So today I'm going to go over, we'll look at a couple of sectors, we'll look at the indexes, and then we'll talk about individual names. We'll talk about some names that we looked at last week and kind of how they played out, as well as what I'm seeing for the upcoming week here. So let's get started. So first off, I wanted to look at a chart of the SPY, which is the S&P 500 ETF. And so the markets have been weak lately and basically just very choppy. And so I just kind of want to look at this major, the index here, the S&P 500. And so what I'm seeing here is this kind of sideways, and it's starting to put in kind of a descending triangle, which is a bearish pattern here. And so it's got some support here at around 212, but it keeps testing that level, and then potentially it's going to break that. So it's a very bearish look there. The ascending triangle is a very bullish pattern that I like, and this looks like basically the inverse of that. So it's not really looking good at this point for the S&P 500 or the markets overall. Maybe it's due to the elections, but at this point it appears to be bearish markets as far as I can tell. So keeping that in mind, let's take a look at the biotech index. Let's see here. So the IBB, or the biotech index, I had a question from one of the members about potentially going long the biotech index, I believe via Labu, L-A-B-U, and I think I told him that it was, it looked like a decent trade. But I'm looking here at this, the IBB index here, and this is actually very bearish looking as far as I can tell. It basically put in, this is the IBB, so it's got this little flag it put in here, and then it just broke down on Friday on pretty heavy volume to new lows. And so this is clearly a bearish downtrend for the biotech sector at this point. If it can put in a bottom, and start, maybe test a bottom a couple of times and put in a support level, and then start putting in some higher lows on the daily, then maybe you can get bullish biotech. But back here you can see this is clearly an uptrend. The green days, brief pullbacks and new highs. This is an uptrend. This is clearly down, and so if I'm looking at this chart, I don't really see any support except for back, down here at like 245 spot for the biotech. And you can go all the way back a year, and once again, the only support you got is way down here. So is it going to go back here and test it? I don't know, but I just, the biotech sector is not bullish in my opinion right now. So could it bounce due to oversold conditions? Possibly, but I like to try to align my trades with the major trend and try to not catch these little bounces that happen every now and then, but try to catch these major moves. Align yourself with the major trend or the tide of the market or the sector that you're looking at. So that's the biotech sector. And real quick, we'll take a look at GDX, which is the gold mining sector. I've been bearish on this for a while, and it still looks very bearish to me. I mean, they had this massive run. You can see the series of higher highs and higher lows all the way through here, and then it put in basically a head and shoulders top. So here's your left shoulder, here's your head, and then here's you can call it a double right shoulder if you will. But it broke down through key support, this GDX, which is the Market Vectors Gold Miner ETF. So we'll zoom in, and once again, this pattern here is showing up on a lot of the individual names like AEM and the silver names as well, in Newmont, PAAS, and so forth. And so you can see here it broke it, this acted as resistance, and then it fell back over again. So I still like the gold short thesis at this point, unless something, it would need to do something along the lines of breaking this downtrend here along this descending channel, something like this. It's got this basically a descending channel type pattern. So I still like the gold short thesis. You can trade the individual names, or dust is a good way, a good leverage way to trade short on the gold miners. Okay, so now what I want to talk about is we'll go into our watch list for this week and what we're seeing, and then we'll talk about some of the names from last week that worked and some of them that didn't. And then we'll talk about my favorite sector of all right now. So first up, let's look at So Wendy's is basically in a solid little uptrend here, and then it's kind of consolidating in this range. Let's see, between basically $11 and down here at the low, maybe 10.50, somewhere in this area. So this is a nice tight range here, and it looks like it might want to break through 11 and take out these recent highs here. So it's a nice consolidation after an uptrend, after a nice run. So I'm thinking this thing's going to continue. It's not a very volatile mover, so keep that in mind. It's a slow mover, but that's one to watch. SXCP. So this one looks really good, and there's several names in this sector that have some nice patterns. And I think the other one is Phelp. I think Phelp is also in this sector, along with CNXC, I think, is another one that we were looking at. So this one had a nice breakout through this pattern a while back. It ran up, and now it's just putting in this nice tight flag type pattern. So I actually like this one if it can get through, the highs over here, maybe through 17. But it's consolidating very nicely here, and you can almost draw a nice little small ascending triangle type pattern like that for your risk. So I like this one. This one looks really nice. SXCP. I went through my scans this weekend, and usually you can find a lot of setups. But like I said, the market's been bearish, and the setups are few and far between as far as I can tell. There are some good ones, and those are the ones I'm going to point out that I found. Let's see here. So next up, we'll look at RMHB. Okay, so this is a marijuana stock, and I know I've been saying this for weeks now, but these things remain very robust. I mean, they're having pullbacks. They get extended and they pull back, but then they just turn around and rip up again. And I still like this sector going into the voting in November, and it still appears to me that the major trend is up for these weed stocks. And so the key is that you want to get in at a key pivot point. So this one here, the breakout was through this 0.048 spot here, which was a recent high right here, and it broke out. If you were to buy that breakout and then it got extended and you take some profits, now it's pulling back, and I think this one's going to pull back, to this support and then ramp back up again. So this is a breakout pullback setup, and you're seeing this, throughout the sector. We'll go through many more names, but this one looks really good. RMHB. Next up is PAAS. So this was one that we had on our watch list. Well, I don't think it was on our watch list, but I know I mentioned a lot on social media. And just once again, this was a great example of how prior support becomes resistance here. And so just like when you're buying at support, you can short at resistance. And once again, look at this support here at 17, 1, 2, 3. It broke it, and then as it rallies back there, there's your signal there to get short. And this was one of the key things I've seen when I was playing Dust, which I entered Dust right in this area, and then I covered Dust down in here. So Dust went from 37 to I think 43 and a half. A little over 43 is where I closed my position. And but if it bounces or we get some potentially new lows to this level, and once again, this is an individual name, but a lot of these names in the sector are showing very similar patterns. So there's a bearish silver miner there. MSIG, this is another weed play. So once again, it had this nice little flag type breakout way back here, and then it broke out, monster run, and then now it's got this spot. Let's call it around 13. So right around this 13 spot here. And so it ramped up, ran all the way up here to 13, pulled back, ramped up and tested it again, and then now it's pulling back. It looks like it's put in a higher low here. So once again, you get this kind of ascending triangle type pattern. So this one would be one to watch for a ramp up through 13 cents here, and making new highs if the sector stays strong, which as far as I can tell, it is at this point. So MBII, this is a new name to the watch list. Found this one on my scan. This one, let's see here. So it had this monster run up here, and basically tried to break that high, put in a little bit higher high, and then it just keeps testing right around, let's call it 190 spot here. And so it looks like maybe it wants to break out through that. It's got basically this this ascending triangle type pattern. and that's some pretty good relative volume on Friday. So this is a nice one to watch for a breakout through that 190 spot. And once again, for profit targets, you kind of take the average depth of the base. So I would say the average depth of this base is like right at 160 here, right in here, and then to 190. So take the delta, 30 cents, 32 cents, add that to the breakout spot, and there's your first target. And so that's MBII. IPCI, this is probably one of my favorite names that are actually, other than the weed stocks, an actual listed stock that's putting in a very nice pattern here. Had a very bullish breakout here. It put in a high right around $3.20 right here. Pulled back to the breakout spot, ramped back up, tested it, and then put in this higher low. And what appears to me is it's forming, once again, a nice ascending triangle type pattern like this. So if this pattern holds and it retests, ramps up to 320, that's a very good sign. Is it going to break that time or pull back again? I don't know. But this one is consolidating very well, and this is definitely one to keep on your radar. I really like this pattern. Let's see here. GBLX, another weed play. So this one first came on my watch list, I think it was last Monday, and it had this spot here, very clear, going back quite a while here. Let's see if I can draw this line here at 40 cents. So, at 40 cents, tested it here, ramped up here, pulled back, put in a higher low, and then it ramped back up near 40. And this one just looked really great for breakout, and exactly what it did. It gapped up, and then for the last couple of days, it's just been consolidating about 40, which is a very good sign. And that told me this thing wants to go higher here. So I actually took a position down at around 42 cents on this day. I think it was on Thursday. And my thinking was, as long as this thing can close above 40, I think it's going to go higher. And so Friday it actually ramped all the way up to 47. And so then, this one definitely looks like it's going higher. Just another strong looking weed play for next week. Okay, FELP. So FELP was a very successful play for us. It ran higher than our profit target here, and this is, let's go zoom in a little closer here. So FELP, once again, had this spot, 475, and this needs to be moved over here, something like that maybe. So this one ran up, and I sold at 550 a share, and it actually closed at 580 on this day. So I sold too soon, but that's okay. I got it at 475, but it's ramped all the way up here to around 6, and now it's just kind of consolidating the last couple of days in a tight range. It's actually a very bullish consolidation. So I don't know if this thing is going to consolidate for how long it's going to consolidate, but it definitely looks like it wants to go higher. And so I'd be watching this one for maybe a move off of this 6, maybe a move through 630, something like that. But this one is very strong. Once again, this one is in the same sector as SXCP, which has a similar pattern, and then CNXC as well. Okay, so this was a question that I got on Twitter about basically this is the velocity shares 3 times inverse silver. So it's basically bearish silver. And so, if, the thinking is if you're short if you're bearish the miners, why not be bearish the actual metal? And it's a valid point. This one actually had a very nice break here, and it's just kind of consolidating, and almost like a bull flag type pattern. So I've never really traded this, so I think my recommendation was don't mess with it. But it's actually not a bad looking setup if it can break out maybe through a descending trend line. So I would kind of use this as my resistance here, and if it can perk up, and so basically if silver goes lower, this thing's going to go higher. But these things have time decay too, which is something about these 3 times leverage, what they call exchange traded notes, ETNs. They for whatever reason over time they have time decay on them, and so they're not actual. They're good for day trades and they're good for short-term swing trading, but over time they end up losing their value. So, but this one doesn't look too bad. I think this would be not a bad trade if it break out through this out of this little bull flag type pattern here. So I actually like it. Let's see here. Next up, ATRS. So ATRS is one that is still consolidating. It's in this tight range, so there's no. I actually took a position at 174. And it's actually, I'm slightly red on the position right now. I'm going to use this lower trend line here, this 160, basically 165 support as my stop out. So it's much less than 10% stop. Or, yeah, so it's pretty tight. It's not really tight, but it's a tight. I really like this pattern, and I'm going to give this thing some time, see if we can perk up through this 180 spot out of this range here. So I'll give it some time, but I still like ATRS through 180. AMID is an oil play that I thought was going to break out, and it looked like it was, but then it failed. So it had this spot at 15. It's tested a few times, and this time I thought it was going to go, and once again it failed. So it's almost back near support, actually, somewhere down in this level. So this thing just needs more time to consolidate, I guess, in this sideways range, basically between, I don't know, 1380, I guess, to 15. So I do think eventually this thing's going to ram back up and get through 15. So this is basically a sideways channel where the stock price is not really getting anywhere, and it's not really trending at this point. So we'll just have to wait it out, unless you could actually buy here at lower support and then sell at upper support and use your risk off the these lows down here and keep a tight stop. So that's one method of trading AMID. So AIMT, it's another one that looked good, but still hasn't really done anything, hasn't done what we thought it was going to do here. I'm looking for this one through 17.2. Maybe it perks back up through there. Maybe it just puts in a low here and ramps back up. That'd be the ideal situation. Or maybe it just gets choppy and fades off. But this was one that was on our watch list, looked good, and then it just didn't pan out. So we'll keep it on the radar, but unless it gets back up here near 17.20, you probably won't trade it or have any reason to trade it. AHGP, this one is, I believe, also in the sector with FELP and SXCP, showing some nice patterns there. And so this one was one from our watch list, how to break out this little ascending triangle pattern here. Good volume. So this one, maybe it consolidates for a little while. It looks higher to me. I think this one's going to go higher. So if you can get in near this breakout level, that's ideal. If not, you would use this breakout level as your stop out. And maybe your target on this is 27 to 28.50. So add $1.50 onto this for a first target. Okay. AEM. So this is another gold play, and what I wanted to show on this chart was it's sitting basically right here at this key resistance of 50. So this is actually a good short setup. Looking for this 50 spot to hold as resistance and then fade back off. If you remember earlier, we looked at PAAS, and it faded all the way back down to here. So this is one that I think could be a good short. With your risk just above the 50 spot, I think this one's going to fade off along with the rest of the sector. And then ABEO. So ABEO, I think the closing price was actually right around 7. I think this is a bad print here. Maybe it's not. But I was looking for this one to hold this basically $7 support. Basically a breakout pullback setup. If this one can bounce off this 7 level, it has some solid support here. It ramped up, and now it's back here. Now it is a biotech, so biotech sector is weak. And so if it actually can't hold this level, then it's time to just get out and not even mess with it. That means, and likely, it's probably going to go lower because the sector overall is weak. So anyway, this is ABEO. And then next up, so I wanted to talk about the weed sector, guys. It still looks strong to me, and I still find lots of setups, even though some of them get extended and they pull back a lot. But I mean, there's still plenty of opportunity there, and I just want to kind of walk through some names of what I'm seeing in the sector. So let's see here. So first up, we'll talk about MSRT, so MassRoots. This is a social media site for like marijuana, I believe. And so ever since here, it put in this head and shoulder bottom that I mentioned a while back. Let's see. So it broke out, 2 days red, and then did exactly what it's supposed to do, like a tennis ball effect, right? It bounces and then falls and then bounces back to new highs. So two red days, bam, bounce new high, two red days, and now we're looking at, you know, a green day and potentially ramping back up. So the stair stepping higher highs and higher lows continues on MSRT. So this is another weed play to keep an eye on. MNTR, this one had a nice flag breakout through this 90-cent spot here. Ramped up 2 days, pulled all the way back here. It was on our watch list as a breakout pullback set up to 90. You know, rallied off of that, and now it looks like it may be putting in a higher low. So this is one, a decent looking one. Let's see. MCOA, this is just another, you know, you can just clearly see the patterns across the board in these weed names. You know, had a nice ascending triangle here. Broke out, you know, got extended, 2 red days, and looks like it's stabilizing and potentially could be heading to new highs. So this is another one to watch. You know, MSIG, we already talked about that earlier. Let's see. AMMJ, so this one has just had a monster run. You know, this is 14 cents, you know, 30 days ago, and it's up to $1, just huge. But anyway, it's got this flag pattern consolidating in this range here, and then Friday it actually broke out on good volume through this range, and you know, it looks like it wants to go higher. So how high do they go? I don't know, but I see the patterns and it's very strong. So this is AMMJ, and then another one looks a lot like this one, same pattern. Kush Brands, they make like, I guess, bottles or containers, I guess, for marijuana. But anyway, this is nice little tight little pattern, very similar to AMMJ, and so if this one holds this level and ramps back through these highs, this thing can be, you know, it looks like it could follow a similar path. Let's see here. CVSI, once again, you know, here it is, solid uptrend, gets extended, 2 days red, boom, rebound to new highs. This one here, 2 days red or 3 days, and then now it's green again, and you're just watching, is this thing going to break out through the highs put in here, just like it did here, you know, just like it did here. You know, you can just see the stair step higher. So CVSI is one. Let's see here. VLOZF, this is a Canadian one, you know, this nice breakout that we traded a while back. This ascending little bull flag here, ramped up, pulled back to support, and then started rallying, so now it looks like it's just kind of consolidating here. You're just waiting for this one to get some momentum and perk back up, maybe through this, and head back up towards, you know, maybe this 56 level, and then make new highs. So we'll keep an eye on that one, and you know, maybe you could extend this line out like that and say, you know, got some, you know, it's holding the support line here. And let's see here. CNBX was a very nice one. This was also on our watch list. Had a very nice breakout here out of this little flag here. This tight little range. Broke out on good volume, and then on Friday basically fell back and then closed, you know, actually closed not at the high day but back above Thursday's close. So that's CNBX, another weed play there. Let's see, was there any other ones? InDev is another one that I still like this one, even though it's taken its time. It looks like maybe it's creating this little wedge pattern here. It's consolidating, something like this maybe. But it's I thought it was going to make new highs sooner, but it looks like it's just consolidating in its tight range. And we'll just look for it to potentially move out of this range, and then potentially through 36 area will be a spot to get long. But I still like it. I like the sector. I think it's the strongest sector in the market right now, and maybe it's the voting that's coming up, and you know, California going to vote to recreational marijuana or whatever. But I mean, the patterns are there, and the sector's strong, and the rest of the market, it just looks weak. Biotechs look weak. There's some plays and some of these like coal names and energy names that I'm finding, like Phelp and SXCP and so forth, but a lot of the other ones, just not seeing too much out there. So we'll see what happens, but we have a pretty good watch list for next week. You know, I may look to enter dust again as a swing trade if the gold sector remains weak, like it looks like it will. And then of course the weed play is looking for setups in the weed sector. So Well, that's all I got for tonight, guys. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Have a happy, Halloween, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, guys. Thanks.